We'll see if Johnny Depp can get justice out of a DC-oriented jury pool, because just as we will see if the Sussman trial results in what should be easy, clear convictions, yet it's been sitting with the jury and did not result on that on Friday after it went to the jury this past week.
So there has not been a verdict in Sussman. The verdict that we were talking about was in Jan 6. Sussman. Well, let's just go. Hold on a second. There we go. So it seems to be more volume on this side. Now, by the way, it's gotten so long, it's grown up, and now it starts to fall to the side. So I'm like a palm tree. Sussman, Robert.
That's true. It is like a palm tree. Someone should put a Viva head with a palm tree on top of your head.
It's coming. Johnny Depp over, people. Let's move on to the important stuff. Sussman. There was nothing revolutionary about that trial, save and except for Robbie Mook's admission that Hillary Clinton personally okayed disclosing that
fake Alpha Bank story.
There was an article in Fox News. I don't want to even bring it up because it uses the F word that's verboten on YouTube, and it's not the F word. It's the other one. It's the 5-letter F word. Starts with friend and ends with odd. Hillary Clinton personally okayed this. And it wasn't just like, according to Robbie Mook, who was the campaign manager in 2016, she personally okayed this meeting, personally okayed communicating this fake report to the FBI for a lawyer who billed the Clinton campaign for the preparation, research, making that document, even for the meeting with the FBI to disclose it to them.
Even the Uber fare and the little the little computer thing. Yeah, so what do you call that drive? USB drive.
Yeah, the thumb drive. So Robbie Mook confirms it. Sussman pleads the fifth. Mark Elias tries to throw a mistrial by suggesting that Sussman was going to plead the fifth, violating his rights under the fifth. For those who have been paying attention, absolutely nothing new out of this trial. The question is for the jury members themselves, probably living in an ideological and political silo, hearing this, what are they going to do? I mean, the closing arguments of Sussman's team were that this is all smoke and mirrors. There's no big deal here. He didn't lie. They're making a big deal out of nothing. And, I got to tell you, I can channel a partisan jury member saying, it's no big deal. He just met with him and gave him something. It's no big deal. Acquit. What's your take?
So the best breakdown of the trial was by Robert Gouvet. You can just look at his closing arguments one, which was very good. And by the way, like some people were critical of the fact that we were critical of some of the lawyers in the Depp trial. If you want to see what I mean by the ability to dramatize, just watch Robert Gouvet taking a bland transcript and giving it life. And he does a great job of it. That's what you can do with tone or tenor and language. You don't have to talk like this to be a good lawyer. So but he did a great breakdown of it. What we predicted is what came true, that it confirmed something I talked about 6 years ago, all the way back at the beginning of all this, which is that they had an illicit claim. They laundered it through law firms and disguised it on the campaign finance reports as legal services. But they also laundered it through law firms by having multiple components go to the FBI, one of whom was a cooperating human source. In other words, he was a rat, part of the FBI informant team. Another one was a lawyer who had high-ranking ties at the 7th floor of the FBI. And they both independently source this information into the FBI. Why? Because they're trying to launder it at a second level. They're trying to launder it through the FBI so that the FBI will open an investigation so that they then can tell the press there's a criminal investigation, which is the excuse the press needs to run with the story. They need a federal criminal investigation to exist or they're not going to cover it. This was all about pushing out the October surprise of Trump-Russia connections based on information that the FBI's technical analysts acknowledged was completely bogus within an hour of looking at the intel and information. For all of this to work, everybody at the FBI that was assigning people to investigate the case needed to keep secret who the source was, which they did. But they internally, in order to not get in trouble themselves, needed to hide who the source was in their own internal notes. They needed in there. Sussman was happy to go along with that by saying, yeah, I'm not representing a client. knowing that's what they needed in order to be able to run with the story and assign the story. So Sussman's defense is, hey, this was all wink, wink, nod, nod. The feds knew what I was really there for. This was to cover them. But they can't fully say that because that would implicate the FBI in criminality, nor can the prosecution fully acknowledge that because that would implicate the FBI. And Durham's trying to cover for the FBI, not expose the FBI. But Sussman is dead to rights. A dozen witnesses said they needed to know who the source was. And a bunch of witnesses confirmed, as was already evidenced in writing by Sussman, that Sussman lied about having a client, when in fact he did have a client, because if he said otherwise, then he committed mail fraud on the Clinton campaign, which is a worse crime. So there's no question that Sussman is guilty. There's also, in my view, no question that Durham's not going to use this to go anywhere. The only question left is, can a D.C. jury be impartial in a case that where convicting someone vindicates Trump at some level? And that's the only question in doubt. And given that they rushed to another conviction this week in a January 6th case, the sixth one, where they just come back and go, yep, guilty. They're showing no sign of reflection. All white juries in To Kill a Mockingbird as a novel, or in Martin Luther, in a civil rights case in the 50s and 60s, took more time to lynch people than do the D.C. juries do to lynch January 6th defendants. So can they give us justice? And Sussman, open question.
Someone, I brought up the chat, and it was not a super chat. For anyone who says I only bring up super chats, it said, who would have believed that Sussman was not there for and on behalf of a client? This was my initial question to Robert a couple of weeks ago. I said, everyone in the FBI knew who Sussman was. He's a what's the word I'm looking for? Technology. What's the word?
IT lawyer.
IT lawyer. He's an IT lawyer. He was representing the campaign and Hillary Clinton, known for years. He was known to the FBI because when the DNC hacks occurred, he was the lawyer. So for him to get up in front of the FBI and say, I'm not here on behalf of a client, I'm here as a concerned citizen, I'm still so stupid and naive and wet behind the ears. I'm like, oh, why would the FBI not know that that's a lie? And then Robert astutely points out, they all knew it was a lie. They just needed him to say it, because if he says, I'm here for Hillary Clinton, then Hillary Clinton is tied to the October surprise, not just in terms of her lawyer disclosing it, but her campaign financing it. And it's
creates a whole bunch of issues, and their ability to get a bunch of everyday level FBI agents to investigate disappears. So it was all a scam. It was a combined scam. But nobody can admit the real truth because the real truth implicates the seventh floor at the FBI. Durham doesn't want to implicate them. He wants to say the poor seventh floor just got tricked by this sneaky lawyer. And Sussman has to say, well, they all knew, but he can't go so far as to say, yeah, I lied because they wanted me to lie. So that's why it wasn't a material lie. He can't go that far without implicating his pals.
And people need to appreciate this. They needed him to lie, because if he didn't lie, they wouldn't be able to run with it. But Robert, now play full
and he knew that, by the way. He knew exactly what the score was. That's why he lied. That's
but here's the full steal, man, because this is the question I had. I think I know the answer, but they needed him to lie. He knew they needed him to lie. They knew he needed them to lie. He lied. Their defense, FBI is going to say, we didn't do anything with this report. We looked into it and said it's so crappy, we are not even moving on it. What's the response to that? I mean, how did it get from the FBI's desk to Yahoo?
All materiality requires is that it be capable of deceiving them. That was the jury instruction given to the jury. That's always been the law. It does not matter if it actually deceived them. It does not matter if they should have known in such a way that it wouldn't deceive them. If you make a statement to the government that is capable of deceiving them, that's all that's required, capable, regardless of their individual subjective circumstances, then the bottom line is disclosing whether you have a client and who that is always capable of influencing a criminal investigation by the FBI. So by definition, that's why when I saw the facts of the case and saw the evidence, I was like, he's dead to rights. There's zero question he committed the crime. There's only a question of whether the jury will convict.
What's the response, though, to the argument that the FBI ultimately did nothing with the dossier?
Doesn't matter. Patently irrelevant. Completely irrelevant.
Well, for the corruption, like if the FBI is so corrupt, they would have run with it. They would have closed their eyes.
Oh, the FBI did run with it, but the problem was the evidence was so bad that their technical analyst came back and said, this looks like a mental health patient came up with this nonsense. That's the only reason the story died. And by the way, Comey reopened it up 3 months later. He recreated that story. And that story lingered for 2 years. The FBI never publicly cleared Trump of this, even though their technical analysts said it was bogus in all the way back in October of 2016. They reopened it again in January of 2017, reopened it again in March and April of 2017. Then Mueller reopened it again in the summer of 2017. They didn't clear him until 2 years later with the Mueller report, which even there did not go into the detail that was disclosed in this report. And so it shows, I mean, Andrew Weissman, think about all the lies that guy's been telling on the social media and media. The number 2 guy, one of the most corrupt prosecutors in America, involved in the bogus prosecution of Arthur Anderson and others. He didn't disclose this. All of them knew it. And all of the people involved at the governmental level hid the fact that this was so bad that they couldn't fully pursue it because technical analysis defanged it right away.
But am I not wrong, or did what did Klein-Smith use in the? No, he falsified another aspect. But did the FBI not rely on the Yahoo News article that published this report to say this?
Well, that was the other level of laundering. So first level is you disguise your opposition research as legal services for campaign finance reporting purposes. You have the law. Then you take your lawyer and technical people who report independently and separately, but really they're taking the same source of information and having, 2 or 3 independent sources take it to the government and take it to the media. The media gets the government. They get the government to say they're investigating, which allows the media to confirm the story. They're the same people who've leaked it to the media. Then the government uses the fact that the media ran the story as a basis to go to the court and get a FISA warrant. So it's all circular, multiple levels of laundering the same bad intel over and over again to illegally spy on people.
All right. Now, I think I know the answer as you're going to put it forward, Robert. Why did Durham wait so long to bring this case?
Because Bill Barr clearly didn't want any major prosecutions to help Trump to be brought before the election. That's my conclusion. Because there's no reason why these indictments weren't brought right away. Compare how quickly Mueller acted to how slow Durham acted. Durham couldn't even issue a report before the election. Barr and Hannity kept lying to Trump for 6 months. Reports about to come. Remember Hannity? TikTok. Man, that guy's a big fraud. Sean Hannity, big fraud. Warmongering, war whoring, fraud. CIA spook-sponsored fraud. That's who Sean Hannity is. If you're still listening to him, you're the sucker and you're the sap. That because he suckered Trump all 6 months.
That's it. I mean, the other explanation was that some people think that Durham didn't actually want to get to the core of the problem, but rather just a superficial solution. Okay, that
was always part of it too. He was always about clearing the FBI, clearing the CIA, clearing the NSA, clearing the Justice Department, about saying they were just tricked and fooled in anything bad that happened here. That was always the pitch. And it was just a mid-level activist. What I told people from day one is as soon as Klein-Smith got a sweetheart deal, that meant nobody big was going to get hit because he was somebody who could rat out Peter Strzok, rat out James Comey, rat out Jim Baker, all the key participants, and Lisa Page. When he gave him a sweetheart deal such that he did no time and was relicensed as a lawyer within a year, there was no practical reality in which the Durham was going to go after anyone else. People are going to probably have to learn that the hard way over the next 6 months. But I'll be shocked. I'll be happily shocked, but still be shocked if it goes anywhere.
Yeah, no, exactly as Maxwell case. So get a nice clean conviction on one person, put it away. You don't have to look into the others. Klein-Smith, by the way, the lawyer for the FBI who falsified evidence before submitting it to a FISA court, saying Carter Page was not a known asset to the CIA when he was, so that it made his dealings with the Russian entities look even more suspicious. Was it a year probation, no time in jail because his wife just had a kid, talking about people having kids at convenient times. And I didn't know, Robert, that he was reinstated to the bar, but
DC rushed right in there.
So we'll see. I mean, so they're deliberating. Dead to rights. Let me just get this chat off here. Sorry. As soon as Sussman is cleared or convicted with a slap on the wrist.
The courts will see it as an embarrassment if Sussman isn't convicted. They think all the January 6th defendants are guilty anyway, so they don't care about all those lynching juries. But if they see Sussman walk, it will be an embarrassment because everybody in town knows he's as guilty can be. They caught him as red-handed can be. If he walks, it's because no jury will convict someone if they're on the right side of politics in D.C. And remember the Antifa types who did all kinds of criminal actions in Trump's inauguration, all of them walked. all of them walked. The people who committed real violence. I mean, there was real violence that day on the Trump inauguration against Trump, unlike a lot of what was falsely accused of January 6 people. But all of them walked. All the juries, grand juries and juries, refused to either indict or refused to convict. So DC is a joke. It's a complete joke of a jury pool. It's increasingly kind of a joke as a judicial pool, and we'll see if you know, the J.D. Vances, Blake Masters, Eric Greitens, Joe Kents of the world need to start looking at, do we need DC as a separate jurisdiction, or is it time to get rid of it as a separate jurisdiction?
I'm just going to bring this up because I love it. Robert, you are officially controlled opposition. How often do you get that you're also a member of Mossad?
Yeah, that's only, well, when I challenged QAnon and what was going to happen, challenged the Dominion theory, challenged Lynn Wood, that's when I tend to get a lot of that stuff. You know, fortunately or unfortunately, I've been right about those things more often than not. Speaking of materiality, guess who has the fraud is just fine because the government's in on it defense?